Craven the Hunter, who uses all the methods of the animals.
Now, witness the making of a new Marvel villain.
Once you're on his list, there's only one way off.
Aaron Taylor Johnson is Craven the Hunter. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit Shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network. You can follow us on our YouTube channel as well, at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined occasionally by my football gurus, Paul and Ian. Let's get to it. Hey, what's going on, Ram fans? Trying to figure out what kind of content I can generate on this lazy weekend. No Rams game on Sunday. And I thought it might be a good time to take a look at the Rams' unrestricted free agents and roll that into our first mock draft. That's right. I know it's awfully early, but it's always fun. If nothing else, we're going to start to get to know some of these players. You can learn alongside of me. Now, Paul Walia, he's probably going to be upset that I'm doing this without him, but thought I'd just give it a roll solo the first time, and I'm going to be selecting guys that I don't know much about actually at this point, more focused on the positions, and, you know, we'll learn as we go, and by the time the Rams draft comes around, the actual NFL draft, maybe we'll know a little bit more about these players, and we can do a better job of predicting which direction they may go. Not that we've done very well in the past, you know, really very few people do, but it's kind of cool that when the Rams do make their selections, we kind of know a little bit about these guys already. At least I did after hanging out with Paul and doing about, I don't know, we must have did 40 mock drafts last year. It was quite an undertaking, but it was a lot of fun. The first thing we need to do, though, is look at the Rams' unrestricted free agents. And if you're following along on the pod, audio only, I'll try to walk through this as much as I can verbally so you can keep up. But we'll talk about the Rams' unrestricted free agents and their salary cap situation, and then try to make the best guess of who they're going to keep, who they're going to re-sign, who they should re-sign, and then we'll make the actual draft picks on those assumptions. So let's look at the Rams' unrestricted free agents and what the Rams might do, what they can do before the draft actually happens, who they might be able to re-sign. And I'm not going to get into other teams' free agents. That's just too complex at this point. We'll focus on who the Rams might and should re-sign. And then after that, you know, what positions they may be targeting in the NFL draft. So let's get into that. Let's first review the Rams' salary cap situation, roster situation heading into the 2024-2025, the end of the 2024 league season and the beginning of the 2025 league season. Let's get into it. First, let's take a look at the Rams' salary cap situation for 2025. Verified this on a couple of sites. Should be pretty close. Cap allocations, $218 million. projected cap for next year, most teams are budgeting apparently for between $265 million and $275 million, which would give the Rams about $57 million in cap space, a dead cap hit of $9.9 million, and almost all of that is due to Aaron Donald. So let's take a look at the Rams 2025 unrestricted free agents. And off the top here, I'm going to talk about the 6 guys that I think they are most likely to try to keep, perhaps. We can only guess. And for those on the YouTube channel, average annual value is presented here. That may not be the best way of presenting this, but that's what I got for you. So, Alaric Jackson, left tackle, 26 years old, and he, I think, should be a priority, although I'm still disappointed with that suspension. If the Rams can re-sign him, we can kind of feel like that left tackle situation's locked down. Defensive tackle Bobby Brown, a couple of months ago, I probably would have told you, hey, let's let him walk, and maybe we do, but that's a position we're not really deep at. Tyler Davis has been playing better, though, so I don't know what we do with Bobby Brown. Then there's outside linebacker Michael Hoyt, and it's kind of the same thing with Bobby Brown. At the end of last year, I was really kind of feeling like it's time to move on from him. But you know what? He's like a Swiss Army knife. If he's used correctly, he can do a lot of things for you. And I'd love for the Rams to bring him back. Then there's Demarcus Robinson, wide receiver number 3 right now, getting up there in years, though. And, we have Jordan Whittington and another free agent, Tyler Johnson. So not sure what we do with him either. The Rams will probably be a team that a lot of free agent wide receivers might be interested in coming over to, taking over that wide receiver 3 job. And then, of course, we'll talk about Cooper Kupp here in a second, a guy that a lot of people thought we might have moved on by now already. And will he be with the Rams next year? I certainly hope so, but that's not certain. And then linebacker Christian Roseboom, another guy who's kind of growing on us. I think we need to bring him back at the right price. He's just a solid day-to-day workhorse linebacker, right? And then Tutu Atwell. And man, another guy that I think, maybe 2 or 3 months ago we were ready to move on from. But, he's filling a role and is productive when he gets his chances. So not sure what the Rams do with him either. Now, I think the only guy in this group that I think is critical we bring back is Alaric Jackson, and I'd hope the Rams extend him. Now, what happened with that suspension? The Rams certainly know, and maybe that impacts their decision, how hard anyways to go after Alaric Jackson, retaining him as a Ram. Here's some other guys that maybe we aren't as sold on, certainly not priorities. Joseph Noteboom, Jimmy Garoppolo, John Johnson. It seems like every year John Johnson's just kind of hanging out there until July, and then we sign him. Hunter Long, could depend on what we do with Tyler Higbee, and Colby Parkinson, I'll talk about in a minute as well. I'd like to see them bring Hunter Long back, but I'm not sure Hunter Long's all in the way he's been used. And then there's Tyler Johnson. Hey, if you don't bring back DeMarcus, maybe you ride with Tyler Johnson instead. And there's some other guys, Pharrell Murchison, Connor McDermott, Troy Reader, certainly won't be high priorities. And then there's some guys that maybe the Rams move on from. And, I got Matthew Stafford there, and I'm only including him because people have talked about it, and I don't think that's going to happen. Matthew Stafford will be back, but his dead cap hit if the Rams were to move on from him. Now, all of these are if it were a post-June 1 cut. So there'd be a dead cap hit of $27 million for Stafford and a $23 million savings. So if you can go find your next quarterback for less than $23 million a year, I guess it might make sense. But again, I'm not advocating for that. Absolutely not. And the same thing with Cooper Kupp, a $15 million dead cap hit and a $15 million savings. And then there's 2 free agents that we just signed that I could see them moving on from Jonah Jackson, $6 million dead cap hit, but a $9 million savings if they moved on from Jonah Jackson. And you know what? That's entirely possible at this point. and Colby Parkinson. And it may depend on Tyler Higbee's production late in the year here. I assume he's going to be getting on the field here real soon. And they got Davis Allen, a young tight end that they really haven't been utilizing much. So Colby Parkinson at this point has to be a little bit of a disappointment. So they could move on from him. $5 million dead cap hit, $5 million savings. So what do I see as their biggest needs moving into the 2025 draft? Now I'm going to assume they keep Alaric Jackson, they retain him, and Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. But you have to start thinking about Matthew Stafford's replacement. Are they going to draft someone in the 3rd or 4th round? They're certainly not going to use a high draft pick, I don't think. And maybe they would. It's not a great year for quarterbacks. 2025 draft isn't. They also have to consider who is the next Rob Havenstein. I don't think he's on this roster. Maybe Warren McClendon. Seem to be pretty solid on the interior right now. If we bring back Alaric Jackson, kind of settles that. But who is our next right tackle? You could usually nail that down with a 2nd round pick. We don't have one though. We know nothing about KT Leviston at this point, at least I don't. Maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick on a right tackle for the future. The next Tyler Higbee, unless it's Hunter Long and or Davis Allen or Colby Parkinson. I could see McVay going for a tight end in the mid-rounds. And I still think we need a premier cornerback. I mean, Darius Williams has had a good year, as has Ahkello Witherspoon at times. Colby Durant has developed pretty nicely. Darion Kendrick and Trey Tomlinson both on IR. I don't know that we have a premier cornerback on this roster in 2025 at this point, and I would love for us to use a draft pick on a cornerback. Now, I didn't include linebacker on this list. I would love for them to go after a premier linebacker as well, but the Rams just don't seem to value that position. Now, with no 2nd round pick, do they use a 3rd or 4th round pick on a linebacker? Perhaps. Certainly not a 1st round pick unless it's a real difference maker. Or maybe you parlay that 1st round pick into a 2nd and 3rd round pick, something like that, and go after a tight end and a linebacker and a cornerback. But we'll get into that when we start our first mock draft here in a second. So that's my first run at this. Feel free to comment on the YouTube channel what I'm missing here, or if you disagree. This is going to be a process, and we're very early in that process, trying to figure out what the Rams might do in the 2025 NFL Draft. So let's kick off our first mock draft for the 2025 NFL Draft here in December of 2024. I know, pretty ridiculous. And full disclosure here, I'm a little rusty on this. Haven't done this since April, so bear with me. And secondly, I haven't done a lot of homework on these guys yet. I did this last year 20, 30 times with Paul Walia. And by the end of that, I knew quite a bit about a lot of players. So this is just the beginning of that process for me. First day in, let's see how we can do here. And going to be focusing more on the positions, right? I identified the positions that I think we need to focus on. Tight end of the future, right tackle of the future, quarterback of the future, a shutdown corner. And, you know, the one thing I left out, if Cooper Kupp's getting up there in years, right? Sean McVay may not be able to resist drafting a wide receiver high if he sees one he likes. And remember, we don't have a 2nd round pick. Very likely the Rams could make a trade with that 1st round pick and get into the 2nd round, add another pick perhaps, and you know they lost a 2nd round pick in the trade for to position themselves to draft Braden Fisk, and that worked pretty good for them. But now we pay the piper, no 2nd round pick. So what do we have? We have the 18th, 82nd, 101st, 119th, 191st, 194th, and the 201st picks in the draft. So let's give this a shot. And like I said, hey, we'll look at the guys I picked in another segment, another drop. I'm not going to do that here. It'd just take forever trying to analyze each pick, trying to decide if this guy fits, doesn't fit what the Rams are doing, just focusing on the positions. Then we'll go back, learn about each of these guys I drafted, and we'll be better positioned for our next mock draft.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you've heard that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
So the Rams have the 18th pick, and this is a good spot to draft an impact corner. Again, McVay may find a wide receiver he loves. The Rams draft a running back every year. Think about it. Cam Akers, Zach Evans, Kyron Williams, Blake Corum. But I don't think they're going to spend their first round pick on, if you guys haven't seen Ashton of Boise State, the Heisman Trophy nominee. By the time you hear this, the winner of that will have been announced. A safety, that will not happen. Rams are pretty well positioned at safety with Jalen McCullough, Cam Kinchins, Cam Curl. Quentin Lake can play back there. Another edge rusher. I would love for the Rams to spend a high pick on a linebacker, but we know that's not going to happen. And Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren, two tight ends, that Sean McVay has dabbled with trading up for tight ends in 2 straight drafts, Dalton Kincaid and then Brock Bowers. If he loves Colston Loveland, he will draft him. And you know what? I'm going to pull the trigger here. I would love to have seen a cornerback available here. And if we look at who was drafted, I believe, there's a couple cornerbacks just went. So 3, Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, 4 actually, Siobhan Ravel, Benjamin Morrison. So let's go ahead and get our tight end of the future. And I don't think that's a reach. Is it Loveland or Warren? I know everybody knows Tyler Warren, but Loveland is considered the better NFL prospect. So we're going to draft Colston Tyler Higbee Loveland as our next tight end. And again, it's my first try at this for the 2025 draft. So cut me a little bit of slack, please. And that was one position that we identified. Now, unfortunately, we don't have another pick until the 82nd pick. Might be looking at a cornerback there. There is a quarterback I really like, that I think could fit what Sean McVay likes to do. But by the way, I am rejecting all trades just to keep this simple the first time around. Carson Beck is not I'll tell you the quarterback that I really like, and you'll see him in the college football playoff, and that is Curtis Rourke out of Indiana, 6'5", 220, somewhere in that range. If you watch him play, you can see where he could fit into what Sean McVay likes to do. Not really a dual threat quarterback like a lot of teams seem to be gravitating towards these days. But so there you have it. Darian Porter, the cornerback, is still there out of Iowa State. And I'm going to go ahead and make that selection. What we have not gotten here is a wide receiver that we might like, that Sean McVay might like. But let's go ahead and pull the trigger on Darian Porter, quarterback out of Iowa State. That's a really good value in the third round. Let's look at our selections so far, giving us A's, which take that with a grain of salt. They're just looking at, I think it's a combination of team needs and the value you're getting. We're on the 101st pick here, and Denzel Burke, the cornerback from Ohio State, is still there, and he's a guy I actually might like more than the one we selected, but just going for value, taking the top guy there. We'll read more about him, both of these guys. So take note, Darian Porter versus Denzel Burke. Who would you rather have? There's a linebacker that they did draft Ernest Jones. I think it was the third round, right? And could they do it again with a guy like Carter? I think we're into the third round here, right? 101st pick, no, the fourth round. So what are they going to do here? Well, we need Rob Havenstein's replacement. Let's go with Ajani Cornelius out of Oregon. Top-notch program, area of need. Moving forward anyways, Rob Havenstein. I feel like we're really set on the interior, especially if we keep Jonah Jackson around. But the and we got some good players there, and we have some depth. But the tackle situation, again, we're working on the premise that we kept Alaric Jackson, but who's our next Rob Havenstein? He's getting up there in years. Remember, Havenstein played for the St. Louis Rams. That's how long he's been around, and just a solid, reliable guy. Love Rob Havenstein, but he's not going to play forever. So let's go back to this player list. And what did we identify? The quarterback of the future, the offensive lineman, a tight end, a cornerback, and we're kind of on track for that. We don't have our quarterback of the future, and I don't think that's, if he's not there, we're not going to reach for a quarterback. Let's see what quarterbacks are there. Curtis Rourke is still there. And if it were me, just for fun, I would draft him. This is a mock draft in December, taking Curtis Rourke here, but I'm not sure what the consensus is. I could be totally wrong on Curtis Rourke's trajectory in the NFL. And I'd be in Tez Johnson out of Oregon. Wow. Let's think about what Sean McVay might do here. Is he going to go to an interior defensive lineman? Is he going to draft a safety or a linebacker? No, he's going to draft the wide receiver. So let's go ahead and make that selection. So two guys from Oregon there. So we got our tight end, a cornerback, an offensive tackle, and a wide receiver. Going a little heavy on offense here, aren't we? But I'd feel pretty good about this draft. I'm going to dive into each player a little bit more. We don't have a pick until 191 here. And something we have to think about is defensive line. We don't know in this example, what are we doing with Bobby Brown? Tyler Davis looks like he is established himself as an NFL player, a rotational guy at least. Are we keeping Bobby Brown around? If not, we might need an interior offensive lineman. And other thing to remember is the Rams draft a running back every year. but they're going to draft a running back that fits what they do. The that 5'10", 210 jump step running back that hits the hole quickly, moves in space, not necessarily a home run hitter. And so we'll have to do a little bit of reading on these guys. Let's go back to, now we don't know what's going to happen in free agency, right? So, and that's another reason why you more focus on positions. The best player is available regardless of position, I should say, and target areas of need in free agency, established players. Here we got a linebacker out of Georgia, another cornerback, another tight end, a defensive lineman. And let's go ahead and take the defensive lineman out of Georgia. And I see that as a bigger need than linebacker because you know what? Omar Speights is getting it done, isn't he? So let's go ahead and take the defensive lineman. So the only thing that I identified early on that we haven't hit is the quarterback of the future. And, that's just going to have to wait, 2 years. We'll trade a couple first-round picks and more for an established veteran free quarterback that's about to become a free agent. Go ahead and get him and go all in once again. Go back to the Super Bowl with, I'm not going to name any names, but there will be some veteran quarterbacks that are languishing with other franchises, and they just decide they're going to move on from him. Can the Rams give us a couple first-round picks? And we'll be back to Les Snead's previous strategy of F them picks. So what do we got here? We are on pick 194. So we have 2 picks left. We have let's go back to our selections. We have a tight end, cornerback, offensive tackle, wide receiver, defensive lineman. We don't have a linebacker, a safety. We don't have an interior offensive lineman or running back. What running backs are there? Again, Rams draft a running back every year. And you know what? I love this guy out of USC. I'm going to go ahead and take him. So let's look at our selections now. This is our last pick number 201. We have the tight end corner. Let's look at it from an offense-defense perspective. On offense, we have a tight end, an offensive tackle, a wide receiver, and a running back. And on the defensive side, we have a cornerback and a defensive lineman. We still don't have a linebacker or a safety. So let's go back to that player list and turn that filter off. Got another an interior offensive lineman, a quarterback, Riley Leonard out of Notre Dame, a safety out of Alabama. We haven't selected an edge rusher either, but I think we have a surplus of those, especially if Nick Hampton comes back. But yeah, Rams take flyers on edge rushers in the 6th or 7th round, don't they? Daniel Hardy, Chris, I forget his name, the edge rusher a couple years ago, O'Shawn Mathis, another defensive lineman there. Who is the best linebacker available? And it's Demetrius Knight out of South Carolina. Hey, let's select a linebacker with our last pick. Before we do that, let's check safeties. A safety, the safety is actually rated higher. The one advantage of drafting a true safety is it gives us that flexibility of moving Quentin Lake back to a star nickel back type position. Linebacker, can they go get a linebacker and an unrestricted free agent linebacker? Very likely. Safety, Keon Saab. Linebacker, Demetrius Knight out of South Carolina, Saab out of Alabama. Boy, the higher rated player is Saab, so I will select him, and that'll be our final pick. And it'll pop up as our final list, but in review, Colston Loveland out of Michigan, he's the tight end. Darian Porter, a cornerback out of Iowa State. Ajani Cornelius, an offensive tackle out of Oregon. And then Tez Johnson, a wide receiver out of Oregon. Nazir Stackhouse, a defensive lineman out of Georgia. And then Joe Quavius, you know him as Woody Marks, the running back out of USC, and then Saab, the safety out of Alabama. That's our first mock draft of the year. Hope you enjoyed it. Got a lot of work to do, a lot of studying to do. I'll come back in the next pod and kind of grade how I did, a little bit more information on these guys. It's a learning process. This is the first semester of NFL Draft 2025 101. I'll see how we did. We'll see how we did. Maybe I'll get Paul Wally to chime in on these picks. And next time, we'll be just a little bit smarter when we make our picks out here from Rams Up. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.
How do you feel when you switch to Geico and save on your car insurance? It's like going to work on one Thursday morning and thinking to yourself, just one more day until Friday. But then somebody in the elevator says, Happy Friday! Then you check your phone quickly and discover today is actually Friday. So yes, Happy Friday, random stranger in the elevator. Happy Friday indeed. Yep, switching and saving with Geico feels just like that. Get more with Geico.